I think also going back to the comment around not knowing who the customer is very often in OTC transactions, there are opportunities to insist that when an agent does an over-the-counter transaction for someone, that they receive an SMS on their phone so that we confirm the number that is effectively behind the OTC transaction, so that the customer who is effecting this transaction through an agent still gets an SMS, and thus the system can track his or her mobile number. Is that doable?
That's one. Mm-hmm. The second thing which this will do is, if it gets implemented, is there's been an issue of overcharging by the agents on the transaction piece, because the customer is unaware of what the actual cost of transaction is going to be. Mm-hmm. So if this SMS goes back to the initiator of the transaction saying so much of money sent and so much charge is done, that will start to get in far more transparency in the system and protection for the customer than that has been inbuilt already, which is one. But the second part of all of this is on the contrary to this, is that the agent, since he knows now that this will become transparent, he will restrict and find out ways that why shouldn't he be doing it. Means that it takes extra time or anything else. That's the second part. The third part is that the provider has to be ready with technology which can now be changed to adopt to the system, where the agent SIMs will be able to get and enter the phone numbers, because right now there's just one number to be included and not two. So those changes to the system will need some time and effect, but if that is the intent of the provider, it can be done.
And I think that it will also cover one other challenge that we see quite often, which is that agents will choose the provider to use to effect the transaction depending on the commission they're receiving from the provider. So for the customer, they don't really much care in many respects. They just want the money to move.
That's right.
So what we've seen certainly in India is that the customer goes in and has heard about one of the providers and says, I want to send money perhaps with Fino to this number, and the agent says, oh yes, knows that they get more commission from, say, Echo, and actually uses the Echo system to send the money. If the callback to the customer's phone says the amount charged and also the providers used, that will also reduce that. And I think that's important because we've seen in India and particularly in Pakistan, OTC has meant that the agents are absolutely king and begin to drive the market in a way that the providers wind up paying more and more commission in order to try and get their platform used as opposed to their competitors. At the extreme, one of the providers in Pakistan is now paying 110% commission. So for every 100 that they get in, they're paying 110 out to the agent affecting the transaction. That's not a sustainable business model.
Absolutely, I completely agree. This is Graham. The way they are kings is today, when these people at the bottom of the pyramid do a transaction, they expect a receipt back. Mm-hmm. And these guys who are small agents or large agents, they've gone and done a printing of their own receipt books.
Right.
So that doesn't say anywhere who is the provider which they will use to transact. All they write is the phone number of this guy to who this account is, or the bank account of the receiver, and the amount that they've received, and that is the receipt which this guy gets. So it's absolutely non-transparent way of working in it. But what this also does is that the providers are all going to the same agent. Therefore, the agent has this capability to split the transactions over n number of providers. And that also helps the agent. Why? Because he knows that the uptime of systems of providers are not always 100%.
Correct.
So they know that when this guy is going to be down, the X provider is going to be down, he will move some transactions onto Y platform. And he's got his targets set. So he's gone and divided the pie over providers to meet his commissions.
Yes. Yeah, no,
That's
makes sense.
that's the other thing around this whole piece.